Is he there?
Yep, we're live.
Cool. Want to kick us off? Or want to wait like a couple minutes?
I'd probably wait. Imagine there's some other meetings running late.
I'll
for
show
people.
it in the Raid Guild and the DAO house in one hive.
Yep.
Just because I don't know everyone here and I lurked on the last call but didn't introduce myself. I'm Spencer. I'm a new engineer on the 3box team alongside Michael and Joel and Paul working on the Ceramic Network.
Awesome. Nice to meet you.
Hey, hey.
Oh, thanks. Good to be here. I'll probably turn off my video and mostly be lurking as I try to fix bugs frantically before our testnet launch.
I will have to drop out soon and make sure you're onboarding a project manager.
Bugs are never fixed. They're just hidden.
Yeah. All right, maybe we'll wait just like another minute. I know Joel has some stuff to kick us off with.
Sweet.
All right, cool. So I think if other people will come in, they'll kind of have to join as we're started. Hamad, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so we've been sort of experimenting with my meta profiles and just on our own database and kind of like playing around with like, you know, what we kind of like to see in like the ceramic IDX world. There's been like a lot of other interest too in like other communities and people that have like come to us that have been describing the same sort of setup and wanting to use something and like trying to build their own sort of version of it. So yeah, I think like the demand is definitely there now, and I think like timing is good now, especially if you can start to execute and build these things out. I think, you know, especially with the schemas and all these sort of things, there's so many use cases that we can start to really build out. One of them, for example, like the meta skills spec for people to, you know, give each other like so Michael's argument came up with it. He was like, so if he's like the CAD guy, he can give people like CAD certifications, and then the CAD certified people can give other people CAD certifications, and you know, we sort of map out these like, you know, provable records that like this guy certified that this guy can do this, you know, tied to like our identities and signatures and stuff. So you know, that's incredibly relevant, especially for like something like Gitcoin, where people can have like their crypto credentials. You know, no one has to do like interviewing and stuff. You just kind of look at who has the credentials for whatever you're looking for and see if they're available, and all these sort of things. So yeah, that's kind of my frame of mind coming into this.
That's cool. I know you shared like just a view on like what my meta looks like. I don't know if that was like last time or like the time before, but I'm curious if there's any like updates what it looks like now.
Yeah, so let's see. We added like some more things. So we have just like the basic skill list, like an NFT gallery. Like the next thing we're working on is guild pages. And that's another thing like we were kind of talking about last time as well, is like, you know, we've had 3box for individuals, but like 3box for guilds and guild profiles and stuff. So we're currently setting up our Discord bot that can basically use Discord as a source of truth for who's the guild and who are the members and what are their roles, just using literally the Discord roles and members, because not everyone has a Moloch DAO or on-chain representation of these things. So yeah, kind of seeing how these sort of things could be modeled as well. So not only like metadata on like individuals, but the connections between individuals and groups, and how that could potentially be used with these things. And yeah, we have like the standard like personality profile stuff here as well.
This has come a long way. It's looking really good.
Yeah, a long way to go still, but it's happening.
Cool. So I guess we have two more like just things that are on the agenda, and I don't know if everyone has like saw the meeting notes link. Let me send that if someone missed it. But basically, from our end, well, the first thing is like, so we worked with Rayleigh Guild to create a verification service that initially will verify Twitter, GitHub, and Discord. But it kind of uses a general format which can be extended to really kind of any social account, and it uses verifiable claims. So Great Guild finished the backend for this, and we're in progress of like integrating these verifications into our new profile app that will use IDX. So like this thing the Radio built will basically be just like acting as like a service that gives out verifications for users, and hopefully we'll like kind of expand that as we see more needs for maybe like discourse, because a lot of like the governance is happening, or discussions in governance happens on Discord, of course, but it's like hard to like tie that to like, you know, an Ethereum address. So yeah, so that's exciting, and we're really looking forward to the new kind of Discord verification as well, because huge amount of people in the community use that. Anything you'd add to the verification services, Michael?
No, I mean, it's exciting. Like there's two models. So basically, like I think we talked about last time, you have one model where users are able to post a message to a public forum, like an authenticated public forum, like Twitter or GitHub, where like you're authenticated in, which allows you to like make a post as a user. And that feed of information is public, so it's easy to verify. So basically Twitter and GitHub are, you know, in broad strokes, the same type of a service, where Discord is a little more difficult because you need to basically have like a Discord bot that lives in a channel and like looks at the messages people post, and then like checks IDX to see if that mapping also exists there. And then it issues the credential. So yeah, I mean like Discourse, Telegram, like all sorts of things. That same framework could be extended to like the chat bot framework could be extended to Telegram. the public forum type of a model for Twitter and GitHub could be extended to discourse.
Makes sense.
Huh.
And so like if I like link these different accounts like Discord, GitHub, whatnot, I can take an ETH address and look up what accounts are linked to that ETH address. Can I also go the other way? Like if I have a Discord user, can I look up the ETH address for the Discord user? Or like find the like IDX profile for that Discord user?
It's a lot easier to go from Ethereum address. Joel, if you want to talk about like the deterministic document thing.
Yeah, I mean, so there's basically like the way we see this is that, so it's easy to go from an Ethereum address because we can kind of use the Ethereum address to generate like a deterministic link from the Ethereum address to users IDX basically, and their DID, and the data itself about the social accounts are stored in the IDX social, or also known as definition. Going the other way is not as simple and will require you to kind of well, have some kind of index over users of IDX. And so we initially, that won't be possible like natively going from like these different social accounts. Once we have like, since like updates in Ceramic are anchored on chain, and we provide like a basic Bloom filter that allows you to kind of easily search which document has been updated. Services like the graph or other similar, like maybe you can have like a centralized indexing service as well. Like you can do indexing of like all the events that happen, and then you can actually provide search based on Discord ID or all these other social account IDs.
Yeah, I think that'd be really cool because like it enables like me to like, I can send ETH to someone's Twitter address, or I can send, if I can do that backwards mapping. But yeah, I was just curious. Makes sense that like we can make a layer on top of it to handle that like lookup.
Yeah, I mean, the challenging thing too is like totally possible. One thing to keep in mind is Ceramic will limit that an Ethereum account can only be linked to one DID or one user. But it really won't be able to limit multiple DIDs claiming the same Twitter account, because those are all still valid. Basically, like you could have DID1 and sign in with some might send on Twitter, post DID1 and then add the Twitter account to DID1's index. And that's valid. And I can have DID2 and sign to Twitter and link the same, like link that my new DID to that same Twitter account through the same flow. Because really there's nothing stopping that. So like you might, but it would still couldn't claim your, if you're looking up, the Twitter account associated to DID, or if you're looking up a DID from a Twitter account, you might find two, and then you might have different Ethereum accounts linked to those. But you would at least know you're sending it to the same user, because it would have to be the same like entity controlling those DIDs.
Yeah, makes sense. Cool. I had some other questions about like performance and stuff, but if there's other sort of things we want to talk through first, we can.
Yeah, I mean, we have an IDX update on the agenda. I don't know if what makes sense to share there. I know there's been some general language change. Maybe we've been working a bunch on like an updated documentation. I don't know if that's in the shareable state right now. Maybe it could make sense to look at that a little bit. But I'll let Paul or Michael talk more about that.
Yeah, so it's something we're working on now. So mostly changing a bit of the terminology around IDX as we are refining things and how we're presenting it. But mostly it's not going to change any of the features that are already available with IDX. And so we're still going through the new versions of the docs. Should be up with the new release of IDX, hopefully this week or next week at the latest. That would go around with the new ceramic release and clay announcement. So yeah, hopefully very soon we'll have all of this in a better state.
Yep. I could share a quick peek at generally the language that's changed because it might actually add some clarity. So this is going to be just like updated language and communication about it, because we found that the protocol design was sound and was sort of ticking the boxes on all the use cases we were throwing at it, but it was sort of hard for people to get started, I think, because some language had to be cleaned up. And so really, like, we're just trying to highlight the fact that, IDX is really, it's a replacement for app specific user tables. So basically, you have this notion of a user table for an app, and it, sometimes includes data, sometimes includes foreign keys to data in other tables, but each app has their own and their own user ID. And so with IDX, you basically have this single decentralized and flips the model of user table from app centric to user centric, and all apps can sort of add and query data from that single index. And data in the index is sort of organized according to definitions. And now we're calling the objects that the definitions map to records. So really what we're saying here is IDX is an index to key value store, stores mappings from definitions to records. And every identity begins pseudonymously as an empty index. And as records get added, the identity gets stronger. And here is just like talking about records. So they're actually what stores discrete units of identity information. So it can be content, can be references to content stored in external data stores or elsewhere. And so really the framework is like an identity is just a collection of records. And definitions just describe records. So data becomes queryable and discoverable in the index, not according to application or domain, but rather according to data format and metadata. And so that's sort of like the key pieces to decentralizing the user table and even clarifying the API. Like really what the IDX API lets you do is set and get records using a DID. And so it's a really like trying to strip down to the core of just like write and read records. And that's how you interact with decentralized identity. Yeah, so that's like a lot of the framing is we used to call records references. And so like, and that was just a bit unclear. So we're really trying to follow the like, the analogy of DNS, where DNS, you have this like abstract, you have this name, and this name points to resources, which have abstract identifiers. And so you have records that map to resources and also map to other bits of information. And so it's a similar concept for identity where you have an ID and you just add and query records. So yeah, I don't know if that makes sense, but hopefully that will clarify some of what it does.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Like always, naming things is the hardest part, but yeah, I like the framing.
Cool. Yeah, we found that it was just like once you get the name right and the analogy, or like this, like what piece of an application developer's stack are you really decentralizing? And then once you like clarify that, I think it becomes much more apparent.
Yeah. So I remember last time we were talking a bit about like, so one thing with 3box is like how long it takes to like load stuff and kind of the performance of it. I'm wondering if that's improved with this at all, or what is the plan to improve that, whether it's like with indexers and stuff. Yeah, because I think that like that was like the other big sort of blocker was like the really like slow performance, that it wasn't really something we can like have for like, you know, continuously updating more high throughput, more high interaction type of stuff.
Yeah, so one thing that's like is the main kind of performance thing in 3box is that we're running it actually, like we're actually running the full like 3box client that has IPFS and like syncs all data over IPFS in the browser. And that's kind of the main thing that makes it kind of quite slow. And so that's like the ideal, that you want to have the kind of full decentralized client in the browser or like in the application. But right now in practice, the technology isn't like really at a point where you can do that and like in a good way. And there are like small like optimizations and tricks you can do to make that work better. So I think long term, that's where we want to go. But right now that we made a trade-off, basically saying that you will be communicating with a ceramic node that runs on some server. You might run it on your own computer. It's technically possible to run the full JavaScript implementation in the browser as well. But in practice, you probably just want to run like an HTTP client that talks to a remote ceramic node. So that's basically the main change that will improve performance significantly. And then like the ceramic protocol works quite differently from 3box, and likely gonna be like a bit faster as well, because we kind of separate the content more. But yeah, that's the main chunk of improvement there.
And it's also worth noting that like 3box, basically you are writing and reading to like your users' 3box data stores. With IDX, you know, like I think, Hamad, like if you're writing or if you're directly storing content like in the record, like you might be for a profile or like you might be for some other like structured JSON data, that will actually be, that can be ceramic documents. So IDX itself and your records that store content. But if you have like data that's really high throughput, like a chat or something else, you know, you could always just add like a foreign key reference to the user's index, like in a record. And then that record could point to like a textile data store or like a database system that provides higher throughput, but is a bit more centralized and has like less like blockchain anchoring and guarantees around that. So like we imagine that as people are building apps, like they're thinking about their data model as like what data store is most appropriate for the different pieces and just like plugging them all in. Yeah. So you really like break apart your application to separate the pieces that need like a lot higher performance guarantees and trade off on other things.
Yeah. I think that makes a lot of sense. Like where the key value in this is like making the links, even if it's links to centralized places, it's not really, it's the fact that the user is in control of that link. And yeah, okay, that's cool. Can I like, so to give you an example for my meta, we have like a GraphQL layer that's running in between like the client side and like all the different sources of data we have that we kind of merge together into one GraphQL schema in the backend. Can I query for users in the backend easily? So because for my meta, everything is like statically generated, so we don't actually like, we just send the raw HTML based on the query the user sends, and so all the data fetching actually happens on the server side. Is that possible for reads and then also for writes?
For reads, I mean, it's something like that would be possible. I mean, of course, there's still like probably not implemented exactly like you want it initially, but like that type of functionality where you like make a query and retrieve data should be possible like on top of Ceramic. In terms of writes, it's kind of hard to use something like GraphQL because you kind of need the user to sign the updates and they need to be structured in a very specific way.
So sorry, I mean, not for GraphQL specific, but I just mean like a server, like some microservice that writes data on behalf of a user without the user signature, in the case that the user gives permission to the service to write that data, or to update some sort of like user scoped data about that. Because I think that was the other major thing, is like so many of our updates to our like users and stuff happen through like Discord bot interactions or like other ways that don't involve an Ethereum signature.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think
You can do both. So Paul actually implemented server-side rendering with Vercel Next.js on the new app we're building, the Profiles app. So basically, like, we have an IDX client and a Ceramic client running on the server, which just does like read-only public data, and then returns it to the app. And that's how we'll do things like, like social link previews. Like if you paste your like profile URL somewhere, you get the image and the thing. And for the writing, there's another project, like Openwork Labs, I guess now they're called Infinite Scroll, but they are basically using like a custody service where, I don't exactly know all the details, but more or less you can permission, like with IDX, you can permission another key to sign messages on behalf of the user. So like, I as a user maybe have a key in my MetaMask that I use to sign into apps and, interact with my IDX client side. But maybe when I onboard to Metagame or something, I can permission Metagame with a key. And so then Metagame can obviously like perform actions on my behalf, but that would be, that is possible. You just need to like think about what the right architecture for that like server side, like.
And I think like doing that approach is like it provides less security because you kind of give away, basically you give the server access to the user's full identity. I mean, you can do that, like give a server like an authentication method to like the user's identity. But obviously that has some major drawbacks. So like one thing we're looking at also in the future is to kind of issue some form of object-based capability where it basically say that this other user identity, and that identity could be a service, has access or has the capability to update the like these three documents that I own.
Mm-hmm.
So you basically like delegate write access for specific documents. So like long that's definitely where we want to go, and that could include things like encryption, read access as well.
I also agree that like giving full like permission to the whole profile is not the ideal way, and like scope permissions would definitely be viable, but I'm thinking even like let's say here's the user, here's our app, our app like owns this record, or the record's what you call it, right? Our app owns this record and can update it and stuff, but that record is linked, hold on, something's up with my video. That record is like linked to the user, or user has a link to that record. So it's like my app like owns the data, but the user, it's like attached to a specific user.
Yeah.
something like that.
That's a good solution, because then you can like have the app create the document. Like the app has just like one ceramic document for each user, and then in IDX you kind of have the record just is a simple thing that just points to the document that the service created, right? So and you can make that kind of in a very nice way where the user can actually like link to that document before it exists and stuff like that.
And that's basically like what we were saying with Bright ID, right? Joel?
I don't remember the specifics of that, but yeah, basically like having an external service that creates a document that is owned by the external service and then pointing to that document from IDX makes a lot of sense. And I think you're on the right track there, Hamad.
Cool. Yeah, it would be good to like hear a bit more about like Bright ID and how this could fit in with that potentially. There's Bright ID and yeah, I think that's the main one.
Yeah. So the way that, I mean, I always see Bright ID as being like an important piece in your profile that shows up, that is basically a claim that says that's signed by the nodes that analyze the Bright ID graph, that says, okay, within this context, you are we have strong reason to believe that that this is your unique account that you've assigned within this context, and that it is indeed unique. And so that's what Bright ID is looking to add to the profile. And then how that's used is up to individual app providers or whatever.
Yeah. So would this solve for each app having to like re-verify their users, where like a user could just verify their IDX profile once with Bright ID, and then each app can automatically look that up without having to scan the app QR code?
So sorry, say the last part of the question again. Each app can do what?
So like right now, anytime I want to build an app to verify a Bright ID user, if they sign in with an ETH address, like that doesn't I can't automatically like look up if they're verified or not. I need to get them to like scan like my app's QR code with their Bright ID app. And I have to do that for every app. My like verification isn't portable just with my ETH address, but this would make it portable, right?
Yeah. So there is something called ethereum.brightid.org that provides an Ethereum context. There's reasons why you might want to use that, and there's reasons why you might want to use that, might not want to use that. It may be the case that users may not like having linkage between different apps using the same Ethereum address. They may not want people to know that their profile that's using app A is also the profile that's using app B. They may not want people to know that those two profiles are the same person. They may want more privacy than that. So we have to think about what makes the most sense as far as respecting privacy. But then again, in some cases, it makes a whole lot of sense to connect those and to allow users to connect those and say, yes, I am, to assert, yes, I am the same person in this app that is the same, is this profile in this app that equals this profile in this app, it's the same person. So yeah, I mean, it depends. It depends on I think respecting what makes the most sense for users is good. I can see, it's hard for me to see users not at some point not being forced down a path of maybe linking more than they want to. It's kind of this slippery slope where it's like, okay, this app kind of wants me to be linked, to link all my different profiles together. Well, I guess I'll do that. And then once you start doing that, it's hard to like undo that. So it going to be difficult. I think it's going to be difficult to preserve privacy for people who want that when apps seem to always be asking people to link their different social profiles together. So I don't know. That's an interesting question, and it'll be interesting to see what happens with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can definitely have a context that is shared between multiple applications. So if someone's already gone through that process of linking, you don't have to ask them to relink. However, it's really not that hard to ask them to relink. I mean, to add another key or another context ID in the case of Bright ID, to say that this is the one that I'm using for this app, and people looking in from the outside can't connect me to the different apps I'm using, but it's still kind of like part of the same profile. It's just not part of the public profile, I guess you could say.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, it's always a balance. Even with my meta, like the whole kind of purpose of my meta is to like bridge together information silos, but it's also like a dilemma between that and like preserving privacy, because the information silos are almost a mechanism that you get the privacy. So it's almost like a new realm of like thinking about how we build these like sort of systems that can like it is where the user ownership of that data like can still possibly be like misused, and like how the privacy and stuff will evolve. But yeah, good to know.
Yeah, I think what we want to avoid is a single universal identifier that everyone has that says like, hey, this is me, because that just that destroys any chance of privacy and like beneficial silos that you might want to have. But I think ideally what you want is something where you can say, hey, I want app A to know who I am in app B. I allow that. I'm going to give them that permission, but I'm not going to give everybody that permission to see that.
Yeah.
So I think verifiable credentials is going to be a way to do that. And so I think it can be a part of profiles.
Yeah, I think that like thinking of actually how that gets implemented, I'm sure that there's like a bunch of thinking we can put into practice, but I think like at the most basic level, like Adam, would Bright ID note, so I guess the way I've been thinking about it is effectively like what Hamad was saying about the app being able to like own a document that it writes and then it like gets linked to the user's index in certain places. Could like the Bright ID nodes like own a document that they like write to, and then the user can add that to whatever one or many IDX records that they want, sort of, I guess, potentially depending on app context.
Yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense. That they write to a document that then you add as wanted to wherever you want it. So do we have what do we know about multiple profiles? Is that something, like, let's say that I want to, are we going to make it easy for people to maintain multiple profiles if that's what they want? How are we going to do that?
I mean, the way I tend to think about it is that you probably want to separate by Ethereum address. So like if I'm a user, I have my MetaMask, I have 2 different accounts that I keep separate, then I would have one profile for account A and one profile for account B. And I think generally, at least for like the Ethereum community and like blockchain community in general, like that type of separation, like based on the like authentication system of the wallet, makes sense. In some cases, you might want to link 2 different addresses to the same profile, but I think that's how I think about like, separate profiles.
Yeah, there's also like it's along sort of both the X and Y axis. So you could like separate profiles on account, or you could just, link your accounts to the same index, but also then in the index have a segregation of profiles. So you could have like a work profile, a gaming profile, whatever profile, and those sort of are all just different records that can be queried according to whatever the use case and context of the app is. So you could really, it's like flexible along like whatever dimensions you want it to be.
Yeah, I wonder if there's a way to kind of like mix and match profiles, pieces of your profile as appropriate. So let's say you have your work profile and some gaming profile or something, and you wanted some application to see parts of both without necessarily like being able to, how in verifiable credentials you can say, I want this party to be able to see this this verification, but I don't want them to be able to prove that to someone else, like to be able to keep passing on that proof to in places where it's not appropriate. Do you think that would be something that's possible to do to like, take pieces of different profiles that you have, I don't know, somehow linked together? Does that even make sense at all?
It's
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense, and I think there are definitely like people in the decentralized identity community that are like thinking about that. I think it's hard though to like design those solutions in the right way before we have like more usage of the technology, because like if we end up like if we design something and then like, oh, this probably solves some issue that we'll have in the future, like that doesn't seem like the right approach, and we probably will end up implementing the wrong thing.
Yeah, I think the most simple thing that we should try to support and try to get adoption for is, if you want to have multiple profiles and have a clean separation between them, you should at least be able to do that. I think if we support that, we can think about how we might want to allow you to link parts of them together in the future. That's more complicated and maybe not as useful as just the base case.
Yeah, I mean, there are a bunch of different approaches. Like you can issue some verifiable credential that is issued by some service that kind of, can selectively disclose parts of that credential through like a zero knowledge proof. So that's like stuff like that you can do. Then you would still, I guess, tie it to the identity, but you could also like issue the credential to like an ephemeral identity that you can like link in, how do you say? Link kind of using time to the identity that you care about. So there are like a bunch of different approaches, and I think we have to kind of see which ones make sense for our different use cases.
Yeah, so with Bright ID, you could if you did have separate profiles that you wanted to use for different applications, you could have the nodes, the Bright ID nodes, verify you as unique in each one separately without making that connection. And so I think that's kind of the base layer that you want people to be able to have a separation if they want it, like a complete separation between profiles.
Yeah.
In 3ID Connect, which is like it's like the basically hosted DID wallet and authentication system that we're also launching and have been working on. We're right now but soon will be the ability to manage like multiple DIDs. So like if a user goes to sign into an app with like Ethereum account 123 and it does not yet have a DID linked to it, you could choose to either link it to an existing DID that you control, or you could just create a new DID for it and sort of like bootstrap it fresh. So I feel like, yeah, we're kind of building some of that into the flow of like, when users are authenticating, they're basically seeing like the profile that's associated to the DID and saying, do you want to add this key like basically to this profile, or do you want to create a new one? So kind of giving them the like just in time ability to make that decision rather than like needing to go to like an identity management interface ahead of time and like, you know, create a profile and do all that first. So that could be another like avenue to achieve some of the same goals.
So I kind of apologize for not looking into this more, but what if you have like private pieces of your profile that you want to selectively share, how is that? Is that something that that we're trying to like roll out with the early releases of decentralized profiles, or is that going to come later, or what do you think? Is that something that we already support?
Joel, you want to go?
Yeah, so that's not supported right now. The main thing that's blocking that. So we have like the general specification like defined for that. The only thing is missing is like an implementation of encrypted documents in Ceramic. And we have like the basic idea of like how it works. It's just that we haven't been able to prioritize that over just general Ceramic functionality. But once that's there, it should be fairly straightforward to just add that to IDX, given that we have like all those specifications in place already.
Cool, thank you.
Another thing I wanted to ask was, is there like a concept of like versioning, or like can I look at old versions of a document and I kind of go back and forth through that easily, or how does that work?
Yeah, so that part is pretty straightforward. So every time you update a document, a commit is created, and the commit has a unique ID, and you can like query Ceramic to view a specific commit of a document. And some of the commits are like just signed updates. Some of the commits are anchors into the blockchain, and so you can have like different security properties if it's like an anchor record or just like a signed record, but yeah, anchor commit or just like a signed commit. So yeah, that's definitely possible and like one of the core features.
Awesome. That's I think like the framing of like commit makes a lot of sense. You know, even like positioning it as like this like your own like personal Git repo, like a distributed personal Git repo in a way that's like connected to other Git repos of data, or like individual files almost. Would that be like somewhat accurate? It's like a network of like individual files as Git repos with like commit history.
Yeah, basically.
That's the right mental model for sure. So we weren't actually like shooting for that when we like created Ceramic and started building and like getting it, but then like the terminology used there used to make sense for Ceramic, and it will like help people understand for sure.
Yeah, Git always finds its way.
Yeah, we actually just
yeah,
we actually just recently made this change like this week to rename each like entry in a document was called a record before, but since we're using the term records in IDX, we were like, well, what else can we call these things for Ceramic? And commits made sense, so we just went with it. But I'm glad it works.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it's really powerful too. Like when you think about dynamic verifiable credentials, so like, you know, things where you'll want a single file or like a single document to be mutable to reflect the current value of that sort of reputation score or anything. So like, you know, if a service is like claiming a user has a certain level of XP or a certain level of anti-Sybil protection or a certain level of credit score or anything that's like a dynamically changing value, it's really easy because instead of needing to completely reissue a new credential and store it and it gets a new document ID and all these things, you just keep the original reference to that document, but that document just gets mutated with a new value.
That's really helpful. I like that model.
Yeah. So is it possible at all to like use this without being linked to an ETH address? Like, can I create a IDX profile off of just a Discord account or just a Twitter account? Or do I have to use ETH address as like the entry point?
So you don't have to use an ETH address, but you have to use some kind of private key material. So we basically right now have two different types of, DAD methods. You can think of them as like an identity wallet kind of. So one is called did key, and the did key is basically it's like a private key and a public key, and you can't like change the key and like update the key if you were to like get compromised or something. But that's like the simplest thing, and like so a private public key pair can have an IDX. The other DAD method that we have is the 3ID method, and that allows you to like have multiple authentication methods. So you can have like one or two or three or more like different secret keys that have access to the identity. And then you can like remove authentication methods when needed. So the kind of core components have no requirements on like Ethereum addresses. It's just like it's like convenient for the existing users to use their Ethereum address to authenticate. But you always like kind of need to have some kind of key management.
Makes sense.
There's someone building on IDX, right, Joel, that is basically just taking, like you could, for example, if it's like a single website or something, like there are ways you might think about building like a service that can authenticate using like an OAuth sign in.
Yeah.
Like Paul, I know Paul has been thinking about this too, but like right now it's just not that mature. But, I imagine, if we're looking at a certain timeline, then you can totally like, because if you can somehow generate a signature from an email like Taurus, then you could, manage a private, like some kind of a private secret, which allows you to control IDX.
Yeah. I was just gonna mention Taurus because like I wonder if there's like maybe a potential way to like even use Taurus as a means to like link accounts together, because they do that same thing somewhat. Like I can send, for example, tokens to a Discord account directly, even if the user hasn't signed in with the Discord account ever in Taurus. And then like as soon as they sign in, it makes that link and they can like get those tokens.
So like some kind of custodial service that's just like, oh, okay, you got like some money to the Discord account, and then when you sign in, you basically like authenticate and then like get that sent to your wallet.
Yeah, so it's not actually custodial. So that's the thing. It uses like Shamir secret sharing through like a network of nodes and stuff.
Yeah,
It's like semi-custodial, but like who controls the nodes is the question. But like UX wise, it's like a nice compromise.
Yeah, no, I mean, so that makes sense. I mean, you still kind of have, you send it to some account that they create. The reason you can like search their service for like a Discord account and map that to like an Ethereum account is because they, have a centralized index of all of the Discord accounts mapped to like addresses. But yeah, the key management part of this, of course, is pretty nice for us, like a kind of more non-self-custodial type of.
Yeah. I have to dig deeper into this. Do you know for sure that they have an index to match like a Discord, like make that mapping manually versus using like the signature or like the JWT token somehow, like the encryption value they get back from that to like
They
derive the
they have,
private key?
like technically they have to have that mapping, like
Mm.
because if you like want to use, you know, like have they support Google and Discord, like would you like yeah, I mean, so I imagine the way this works is basically that like if you send money to like a Discord account that hasn't received any like Ether or whatever yet, then they will like spin up one of these Shamir secret sharing system that has an account for this particular user, and then just like send it in there. So yeah,
Cool. So
but yeah, it would be interesting to like if you're able to, because like get that mapping that they're building, also put that into IDX. That would be like very sweet.
yeah. So you said that testnet is launching next week. Like what's usable today, and like what should we start like today, as in like what will be usable next week that wasn't usable today, and like kind of what else is like the timeline from like here to like 6 months from now, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, so basically the next week it should be like completely usable, and most things should work as expected. The thing we're focusing on, like after we made this testnet release, is of course making it ready. I mean, basically it's like making it ready for anchoring on mainnet. So the testnet will anchor on Ropsten, which means that like all updates will be secured, you know, by the Ropsten network, which is obviously like not super secure. It's testnet. The main thing for mainnet is like anchoring on the Ethereum mainnet. And then like besides that part and making that, you know, operationally secure, like having a service that actually makes mainnet transactions. Other than that, like it's our main focus is like making sure we test the implementation, test the infrastructure that we host to make sure it can handle the load that we'll get from other users and like all the applications that we're creating, and so we can like be migrate, like it's just like handled a lot of like migrating all like 3-box profiles.
Yeah.
Like that.
And I would also say in that is like a bunch of performance testing and optimizations. Like everything will work and it should work fairly well in testnet, but the whole goal of it is to like, once people start building, I'm sure there's going to be things that we can uncover, optimizations we can make just to make everything a lot more speedy and performant as well.
For sure. Awesome. Yeah, definitely looking forward to digging through those stuff and helping get stuff polished off.
Sweet. Yeah, we're excited. We'll be sure to share all the, you know, the announcements and things that we'll publish next week. But yeah, it's exciting times.
Cool. Well, unless anyone else has something on mind that they want to share with the group, I think thank you all for joining today, and I think it was a really good discussion. So I think I'll see you all in 6 weeks. So
awesome. Yeah, thanks ton guys, and congrats on the progress.
Thanks. We'll see everyone soon. Talk to you online probably much before then.
See y'all.
Yeah.
Bye.
bye.